Hey, I'm staying in the Bahnstadt District of Heidelberg, Germany right now, and this is my Passive House hotel room. And it looks like any hotel room, but it's full of fresh air, it's very comfortable, it's super quiet. I've been jet lagged the last couple of days, so I've been in bed trying to sleep at like 2 and 3 in the morning, and it's been very quiet, so it's been easier to deal with that jet lag. Bahnstadt is a district of all Passive House. So this is a whole new area of Heidelberg, and it's basically Passive House as far as the eye can see. So we're really looking forward to sharing some of this district with you in video. So we hope you enjoy.
And when was it that the city decided to establish this as a Passive House area? So the city was kind of thinking about how they wanted to represent themselves here, and that they really wanted to look into sustainability and looked at energy efficiency, and therefore Passive House. So in 2009, 2010, they didn't know how they would market it. So the first building was built by the city, basically. Some were very critical. Some developers said it's never going to happen or work, and then some were very, very positive about it. The city made the decision to go this way, and then the next step was really laying out the right contracts with the appropriate developers to actually, kind of reach those goals. So it's basically a contract where they bought a piece of the lot, but it was in the contract, it was said you have to build a Passive House. Yeah, so the next step was then really to think about how do you control that everything gets built as a Passive House. Yeah, so that they decided that you basically, once you apply for the permit, for the building permit, that you had to show the PHPP to show that you're going to build towards Passive House. Theoretically, there would be a way out of not building a Passive House if you can prove that it's basically cost prohibitive, but nobody even tried to do that.
And it was very difficult for the architects and for the planning partners to understand that we need the PHPP before we begin the building. Just now, if we have had new partners to build here a house, they had the same problem. But we have a lot of partners. They have built 2 or 3 houses, and they bought the next area and built the other house. They know how to do it.
Besides the Passive House standard, they also thought about the heat generation for the whole district. So they built a wood burning factory. I don't know. Yeah, it's big enough to basically heat and support all the electric demand here. Yeah. So the district heat basically gets fed into like a big area, and then from there it gets distributed. It's not that each building gets their own distribution. It gets brought here into this kind of bigger collective and then fed to the individual buildings. Yeah, so they thought about transportation as well, so that there's not as many cars around, so a lot of bike lanes and trains. Yeah. So that they thought about completely banning cars basically from the whole area here, but the city wasn't brave enough. There are very few parking spots for visitors. They have parking under the buildings for the residents, but for visitors there's not a lot of parking, so it's discouraged. So there are like 3 or 4 fairly big areas in Heidelberg where there used to be Americans stationed, and after they all left, the land was still owned by the government, by the German government, and then the city of Heidelberg, they can buy that. They're the first in line to actually buy it. So these are some development areas then where they also encourage Passive House or the district heating and all these approaches that are developed here. So that's the fire department there. That was the first building that was built here before This all started in 2007, and it was actually the first passive house fire station. There was a competition, and then this design won, and then therefore the architects, had the power. And that's something very common in Germany too. For buildings like that, there's always competitions. Yeah, it's fairly never that it just goes to some architect right away. This was a competition as well, and part of the design was this water basin that everyone liked design-wise, but it also has a function because they want to basically preserve 50% of the rainwater or collect 50% of the rainwater, and it's through the green roofs, but then also through this water. If it was really just functional, then it would only be full if it was actually raining and not if it wasn't raining. So because people really like having water here, they had to find a way to keep it full of water. So they did some drillings down into the water tables so that they could resupply. One of the things that the city really wanted was for the architects to use local material. So there's a certain sandstone veneer that they wanted them to use. But at that point, they didn't really have a system that would work with the thickness of insulation for Passive House. So they basically went back to the manufacturers and developed a system that worked for Passive House, and now that can be bought or purchased just on a regular basis too. There's another district that's getting developed, and there it's also required to do Passive House, but they also require that 40% of the new construction is going to be wood construction because of the embodied carbon discussion. This was the first laboratory as a Passive House. Yeah, and the special thing about this building is that it basically looks different every day, because the shading systems are integrated into the facade and basically gets used as you need it. So this is not necessarily an example of very cost-effective Passive House construction. And the facade is just very, very heavy. Each of those panels really heavy, so each one of them has a big motor in it. So there is a central control that if the sun comes out, it all gets lowered, but then everyone can individually change that.
It's a little overwhelming to have every single building you pass be another example of Passive House. Ilka, thanks so much for making that happen.